Welcome to the eForms video tutorial series. The eTransfer form is unique in that it's often completed by two separate parties at different times. In this tutorial, we will be looking at the transferors portion of the eTransfer form, which includes boxes 1 through 11. We've also produced a video that concentrates on the eTransfer form from the transferee's perspective. This video covers boxes 12 through 20. Box 1 starts with identifying the transfer type and will always be completed by the transferor. You have the option to select freehold title, condominium title, leasehold title, statutory easement title, and life lease title. You can select as many options as required, depending on the nature of the lands in the titles affected by the transfer. If you select a freehold or leasehold title, no additional information is required in this box. If you select condominium title, indicate whether or not the transfer is under an agreement of purchase and sale. If you select statutory easement title or life lease title, the form will remind you that additional evidence is required. Box 2 is where you'll select what information will be provided by the transferor and what will be provided by the transferee. Some information must be provided by the transferor and is excluded from this box. Similarly, other information has to be completed by the transferee and therefore is also excluded from this box. The options in this box are Title Issuing Instructions, the Farmlands Ownership Act Evidence, Fair Market Value Evidence, and Transferee Name, Address for Service, Tenancy, and Interest. Any information that will be provided by the transferor must be checked off in this box. Once these selections have been made, the form won't allow the transferees to provide the same information, preventing possible conflicting information. In this video, we are going to select all 4 options so that we can demonstrate the entire transfer section of the eTransfer form. For more details on the version of these boxes where the transferee is completing them, please see the transferee video tutorial. Box 3 is where you'll provide information on the party transferring the land. Remember that you can add as many separate transferor types as you need to. The 5 options to start with are individual, corporation, executor, administrator, trustee, government and government agency, and public school. If you select individual, you will have to provide a full legal name. It is here you indicate if the document is to be signed on behalf of a transferor by a third party, such as a committee or pursuant to a power of attorney. You can also indicate in this box if one of the joint tenants on title is deceased. This would prevent a signature page from being generated for this party. If you have more than one individual transferor, you can add additional individuals using the plus icon. If you select corporation, you will have to provide the company name. You can also indicate if the document will be signed pursuant to a power of attorney or a court order. Where the title or interest being transferred is held in the name of a trust, you must select the type of trust. The most common types are executor and administrator. When you select one of these options, various subfields will open up to allow you to enter the details of the trust. Bankruptcy, religious society, and cemetery trust are other trusts that can be selected. If you select government and government agency, you'll need to provide the name of the government body. You must also specify how the transfer will be signing so that their signature pages can be adjusted accordingly. The final option is public school. In this instance, the form will remind you to attach a letter of approval from the public school's finance board. The first part of box 4 is for the land description that will be transferred. You can add multiple land descriptions with the plus icon. You have the option to choose all or part of a title, all units in a condominium plan, or all lots, blocks, and parcels in a plan. If you select all or part of a title, you'll then have to provide the title number for the lands being transferred. The 2 options are current title number or issuing from title number. The issuing from title number would be used if a title creating document is being filed before the transfer. In such a case, you won't know the title number created by that instrument. Choose whichever option is most appropriate, and then choose whether all or only part of that title will be transferred. You'll need to provide a land description for the lands in the title affected by the transfer. If you choose all units in a condominium plan, or all lots, blocks, and parcels in a plan, you'll need to provide either the deposit number or the plan number, depending on whether or not the plan is registered yet, as well as the office name from the drop-down list. You'll then have the option to select current title number or issuing from title number. If there are multiple titles for the units in that condominium plan, you can enter them here. The land description will populate itself automatically based on the option you selected and the information you provided. The next part of this box is reserved for listing the instruments that will be subject to the transfer. You can list instruments currently on title, instruments that are registered prior in series, or a combination of the two. For instruments that are currently on title, you must provide the instrument numbers. For instruments that are being registered prior in series to your transfer, they won't have a registration number yet. Select the document's instrument type from the drop-down list. It's important to note that this drop-down list is not exhaustive. We haven't included instruments that have no relevance to a transfer, such as a change of address request. Box 5 is reserved for the consideration of the transfer. There are 3 options. You can set out the consideration in the currency of your choice. You can set out the monetary consideration together with a statement that there is other good and valuable consideration. You can state that there is no monetary consideration. For the first 2 options, you will need to enter a monetary value in the first box and select a currency from the drop-down list. This list will always default to Canadian dollars. If you select no monetary consideration, then a text box will open to give you a space to specify why you've selected this option. This is where you can indicate if the conveyance is a gift, if the only consideration is love and affection. Box 6 is the first box that includes information that can be provided either by the transferor or transferee. Remember that for this video, we have indicated in box 2 that the transferor will be providing all of this information. Title issuing instructions are completely optional. If you choose to provide these instructions, you first must choose the most appropriate option and then specify how you'd like the title to be issued. If the transferee will be providing this information, this box won't be applicable. If you selected the Farmland Ownership Act evidence option in box 2, you will now enter that evidence here in box 7. There are several options to choose from, and you'll need to select the most appropriate option. If you indicated in box 2 that the transferee will be providing this information, then you won't be able to enter the information into this box. The transferor must complete the information in box 8, unless you specified in box 2 that the transferee will do it. There are 2 options for fair market value. If there is one value for all of the land in the transfer, then select the first option. The first field to complete is the value of the land as a whole, and the second is the value of the interest in the land affected by the transfer. If the value of the interest being transferred is different than the whole, you will need to provide that value. An example of where this might be the case is if the value of the land being transferred is only half of the whole value. If you are transferring the entire interest in that piece of land, and the value of the interest in the land affected by the transfer is the same as the value as a whole, you'll select this option and no further information is required. The form lets you enter the fair market value for each of the various lands specified separately in box 4 of the transfer. You can provide the value of each of the piece of land as a whole together with the value of the interest in the land affected by the transfer. The transferor enters the transferee's name and address for service in box 9. There are 5 transferee options to choose from: individual, corporation, executor, administrator, trustee, government and government agency, and public school. You can add as many different transferee types and transferees as necessary. You must provide an address for service for the transferee. The names of the transferees are captured in box 9. In box 10, you'll identify how these transferees intend to hold title and the tenancy and interest they will acquire. This box allows users to create multiple interests, specify who will own each interest, be that one transferee, several joint transferees, or several parties as tenants in common, create titles for a fee simple absolute, for a life tenancy, or for an estate in remainder. Let's look at some examples of how this box functions. Let's say our 2 transferees will hold their interest as joint tenants as to an estate in fee simple. Now let's look at an example of where 2 transferees are going to own an undivided 1/2 interest as to an estate in fee simple. In this case, the box will be completed in this way. Let's look at one final example. In this instance, we are dealing with a life estate with an estate in remainder. Box 11 is where you'll provide contact information for the person who prepared the transfer section of the e-transfer. Once this has been completed, you can lock the transfer pages to create the transfer signature pages. It's important to note that, unlike other e-forms, you cannot unlock the transfer portion of the e-transfer once it has been locked. This ensures that the form does not get unlocked and/or changed once it has been sent to the transferee to complete. We recommend you save a draft of the e-transfer form before locking the transfer portion, so that you'll have a working copy in case you need to redo your portion. For details on printing a draft, please view the e-forms overview and security features video. Let's go to an e-transfer that has already been completed and locked to view the transfer signature pages. As you can see, the transfer portion of this e-transfer has already been locked. Again, it's important to note that there is no option to unlock the transfer portion of the form. The first signature page we will look at is for an individual. As you can see, the signature page has been personalized based on the information provided in the content pages, and there is a place to provide Homestead Act evidence. The options listed here for Homestead Act evidence reflects the fact that the transferor is an individual. The second signature page is for a corporation. Notice how there are no Homestead Act statements, since this is not required for a corporate transferor. In addition, the area to sign allows for signature by employees, officers, and directors. You can now print the locked transferor signature pages so that they can be signed in ink. Save the form again using a different file name. The transferor signature pages will be locked in this version, so you can send a digital copy to the transferee. The transferee will need to complete and lock the transferee portion of the form, signing in ink any transferee signature pages. The printed content pages, the signed transferor signature pages, and any signed transferee signature pages must be submitted together for registration.